Alright guys, welcome back. We got another little project to do after we turn off the old Noisemaker 7000 over here. We're up to 54, that's probably good enough. We made it to 54 degrees. Well, I wasn't expecting to see you here. Like I said, I got a lot of buddies with a lot of engines that they'd be going through. This is kind of a little bit of a sentimental one for me. The heads were done by an old machinist friend of mine who had passed away a few years back. This engine came out of my buddy's Supercharged SN95. I think he had a little Vortec S trim on it. And, you know, I think it's been sitting for about 20 years at this point, 15, 20 years, while he had the rest of the car done. It's just a stock block deal. It's nothing extravagant or anything like that. But it's just something at this point, he's just wanting to get it back together and, you know, go out and have some fun with it. And he just hasn't had that chance a lot lately. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go through it, see what it needs to make a good, dependable street engine for him. I think these are Windsor Junior, Windsor Senior iron heads. I can't remember. It's been a long time since I've seen them. It looks like they didn't get the intake gasket stuck right, and we're using the no-nos here. I prefer to use silicone on this. The Right Stuff RTV is the correct stuff to go. Looks like, we got factory style, at least they look like factory roller lifters, factory style. Push rods are real loose, so he must have the rockers backed off, if there's rockers under there. It is an SN95 front timing cover, so we know a little bit about it. We don't know a lot, but we know a little bit. Let's see, what do we got here? Definitely has factory style valve covers, which honestly I don't really like them. It looks like fresher style cylinder head gaskets too. See what we got under door numbers 1 and 2 here. Okay. So under door number 1, what do we got? Well, I called that one. Rocker arms are definitely not on there. This was a stick shift car too. What rockers are those? They look to be comp. We got guide plates. They are Windsor heads too. So comp guide plates, hardened push rods. What do we got? 1.6 rockers, comp cams. Older steel rockers, honestly not a bad deal. So that'll be a thing for him. Oh guys, if you're ever looking for pig mat, it's cheap on Amazon. Really cheap. So let's see what we got. We're gonna back these off and we'll lay them out. This one's a little stuck. They got it jammed in there. So this is a small hydraulic roller spring package too. Looking at the springs, just a tiny package, but being as they're redone, and he's not gonna run a lot of boost. I think he'd be happy 450 to 500 horse. So he doesn't need, you know, on a stock Estrella 2, 12, 14 pound with an S trim should probably make that through a stick pretty easy. The car is way overbuilt for what he's gonna do as far as the chassis. Eventually he wants to build a Windsor, 351 Windsor based setup with a little bit aftermarket block and stuff like that. These heads are really clean, so this car didn't run for long. Not at all, actually. I don't even think there's wear on the guide plates. Huh. I thought he ran this. These rocker tips don't look like they're stuck. That's not good. Do any of them move? No, they do not move. We'll have to soak those in something and free them up. No, they're not moving at all. So the rocker tips are stuck. The fulcrums move. Interesting. Let's see what we got. Push rod noise. Yeah, these push rods, I would say they've never been even ran. So we'll go through these and make sure these are sealed down. There is a little bit of oil on them, a lot of garbage, but a little bit of oil. So the only problem I see are these rockers are stuck. That's not good. The heads look like they've been ran. There is some trash through them, but the rockers look new. Retainers look new. The seals look new. Let's see what we got. It'll be interesting to see what's going on in this engine. This one's not stuck. This one's not. So it looks like what we're gonna have to do is take and get them freed up, because this side, they do roll, but there's a little bit of resistance to them. Yeah, that one, we can probably get those soaked up, cleaned up. I bet the grease is just hardened up. Like I said, this thing has been sitting for years and years. And honestly, the small block Fords are becoming a lot more popular again. Kind of time has circled around them. So I really don't mind building them. They're one of my more favorite engines to build. They're simple. They will take a beating. When assembled right. So we get a 6400 push rod in there, which actually seems a little bit short to me. Huh, let's look at this valve train a little bit. So that's offloading cam lift. That's not too bad. Yeah, I could definitely probably go with another 100 thou push rod. 100, it probably needs a 6500 or so. So these push rods are definitely a little too short. So that's something to note. Guys, when you're tearing an engine apart like this, I don't care if it's a stock build or anything like that, you can't have enough notes. So, and, oh, talking about insulation here. So these push rods are a little bit shorter than I would like to see with this style head, and that can lead to guide wear, stuff like that. Push rod's too short. Rocker tips stuck. Don't mind my chicken scratch. Let's see. All right. So we know we got two things. Might as well write down the size. 6400. And the good part about these old, you should always measure your push rods. Oh, and it had 1250 gaskets. 1250 intake, but I think I'd rather see a 1262 on it. And then blend the ports a bit. I don't know what intake he's running. If it's probably like all old small block Ford guys, it's a trick flow or trick flow based variant. I'm gonna say this thing hadn't ran since these heads were put on, because I still see hints of ARP lube and stuff. I'm gonna go with this thing probably never ran after these heads were put on. Let's give these valves a whack to make sure they ain't stuck. Not stuck, 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 not stuck. A little bit stuck. That one's a little bit stuck. It's still moving, but it's a little bit stuck. Here's the other thing. If this is a stock bottom end engine and these have big valves, unless it has the smallest of cams, these won't clear. I've been down this road before. These will not clear. Okay, so another thing to watch out for. When you're taking the heads off, the pattern generally, you want to go reverse of installation. I would prefer to see adjustable guide plates, but these don't look lined up bad. ADHD just completely kicked in. So you want to start at the outside and work your way back in and then take the middle out. Reverse of installation, so that's all that means. Also on a small block Ford, I've said this before, you should seal this bottom row of bolts because they go right into the coolant jacket. So what I like to do, they were torqued, is ooh, there's a ratchet tooth. Break them loose. Nope, maybe not. Also, that was a little bit tighter than they needed to be. They smoke those things to Jesus and back. That's the hardest thing on a ratchet too, is that skip. That's what breaks your teeth. All right, well, one side done. Problem with being a lefty too. Let me pull this out a little bit. Actually, let's go from this side. I know a lot of guys use Impex for teardowns. I don't know when I'm breaking the bolts loose. I like to feel what's going on when I can. If it's at work, now that thing's... I might have broke the socket on that one. Nope. Man, they did not lube these. See, I'm feeling something there. They did not lube these correctly. That's a shame. I can smell whatever they used. It smells like Loctite. Yeah, it definitely smells like Loctite. So I'm betting we're gonna see something. Oh my God. All right, guys, again. So the old 5-liter school of thought was over torquing the bolts. I've seen that crack the block at the corners when guys don't clean out the head bolt holes and they over torque them. There's no need to do any of that. people are gonna say about this Fram filter, 100%. Guaranteed, first comment will be, get that Fram filter off there. Anytime you post a picture of a Fram filter, that's like the #1 thing. Why are you running that Fram filter? So here's another thing to watch out for. A lot of these aftermarket heads require a 1/2-inch stud or a reducer washer. None on here. So they use a regular 7/16 bolt and a 1/2-inch hole. So we'll have to get the reducer washers. And I guarantee there's actually no sealer. I think they might have done Loctite. I don't know, we'll see in a minute. There's some rust. Uh-oh. Come on. There you go. Power through, power through. That's some definite rust. All right, so a trick for me on a stand, even though it's pinned, I like to leave one head bolt in when I'm taking the other side off, just in case. So let's get this off here. It looks like they used a regular. Yeah, so there's no sealer on these bolts. No sealer at all. So sometimes they won't, but a lot of times they'll leak coolant. So you have to seal them. So head bolt reducing washers. Oh, that's terrible. Can I blame my hands are cold? Can we get away with that? And not just that I have sloppy man writing. That's stuck on there though. So here's the other thing. Oh boy. It glued down. Sometimes when you got one that's stuck like this, put a head bolt back in it. Take your pry bar and give it a little love. Pry bar, crowbar, whatever. Generally you don't want to go on a gasket surface. So you can have a, excuse me, point like that. All right, so now we know. And iron heads too. Well, it was cleaned up. Yeah, I'd say these heads were never ran after they were originally done. It was a rotary broached finish. I'm gonna say these heads had not been ran. I wonder if they're a typical 202 1/6 valve deal. Let's see. When you know you have a caliper set in here. Oh. Yep, it's definitely the cold. My hands are not working. Let's see. Let's go to inch. Zero it out. This is going to be a rough get you close measurement because they're either a 1/900 or 1/6 valve or 202 valve, something like that. I'm going to go with 202 and let's see the exhaust. The proper way would be to take them out, but we're just doing a quick dirty get you close measurement. Yeah, 159. All right, so it's got your typical 202 1/6 valve package. which is realistically what everybody runs. So with an inline head and a decent sized cam, that would have hit. And these pistons have not been clearanced. They've been cleaned. You can tell it's been sitting. There's still some crosshatch in the bore. Honestly, that bore is not bad. There's some water staining marks in it, but that bore is not bad. Huh. It might get by with the clean gun. It might get by with that. We'll have to measure the bore out. Head bolts stink like they've been ran, but they haven't been ran. You ever notice that the old bolts, when you pull them out, have a distinct stink? And again, you don't want to go into gasket surfaces. There you go. Just a little bump. What are these gaskets? They're either 8548 or 9333 gaskets. I'm gonna say they're the 8548s, which honestly are okay for low boost if you keep your tune in check. I'm gonna probably stick them with MLS because I prefer them, which means we should probably deck the block. All right, he doesn't remember what the cam was or what the specs on it were. So we're gonna discover that one. Oh boy. Yeah, those got some gravity. All right, yeah, so it's definitely not ran. The head gaskets were on correctly, it looks like. Yeah, front. So he did have them on correctly. And guys, that's not a huge deal. Like, people make a big scene about stuff, especially when it's a friend. You kind of just correct it and don't say a word. Everybody on the internet wants to prove, look at that, wants to prove that they're smarter than the next guy. There's no brotherhood anymore. So these small short bolts, yeah, he had them up. There's a lot of assembly lube they used. He doesn't think it ran with these lifters. He doesn't think. They're definitely lubed. I don't think it was ran with these. This cam still has lube on it. So it looks to me like this thing got put together and then never finished. This whole thing isn't that bad. Somebody was in here. Yeah, I can see the lobes. The lobes don't even look like they were broke in. Huh. A lot of assembly lube. Lots and lots. Yeah, these were never ran. Never. Oh man. That cold is starting to bite a little bit. We're gonna get a magnet because my hands are slipping and sliding. Let's see what we got. Come on. Let's go. Yeah, there's plenty of assembly lube on them. Honestly, I don't like that heavy assembly lube on a roller lifter. I typically just oil them because they're rollers, not sliders. Simple as that. They are free though. So anymore, with all the problems with Morel lifters and everything like that, I would rather reuse a factory million-mile lifter than anything Morel sells. They're just, the problems with them lately blows my mind. Any company would think that they could recommend what oil your engine needs weight-wise for their lifter. No thanks. Junk. All right. Sorry, ran over. So you got to pull your balancer. What do we got? Over the years, I've built up quite the bolt collection for balancers. And it's very well organized. There's one. Usually I got a couple sticking together. That's not it. That's a little short, but it'll work. Where are you coming from? There you go. So there's two. These engines should be all 50-ounce imbalance engines too, externally balanced. I think that's part of the issue with sometimes supercharged guys splitting the crank. That's another thing. I'm gonna see if I can talk him into not using the factory cast crank, if at all possible. Doesn't mean I will. I've seen a lot of guys snap the stout of the crank off. It does spin though. Guess I should have probably checked that in the beginning, but it does spin. Oh, there is some rust. All right, so this engine's probably gonna get bored. Bored and honed, probably 30 over. We're gonna add some wind to it. Meaning, we're gonna put some compression behind it. That wasn't tight. That was not tight. So, the old school thought, and this is, everybody did this. They wanted 8.5 or 9-to-1 with a force-inducted motor. That's just not the way anymore. And not the way I ever preferred it to be. Because the happier and healthier you make this engine NA, is the healthier it's gonna be when you put boost on it. End of story. And I mean, people might argue camshafts and stuff like that. Yeah, camshafts do make a difference. But as far as the deck isn't even that bad on this thing. That thing's seen some things and been through some things. Also, I don't know at what point Craftsman started doing this, but if you look inside their sockets, the shallow ones, the purchase depth is really kind of narrow, but it's not on the deep ones. I mean, this is an older set, but this is, I feel like that's a newer thing. feel like that's 9/16. Let's see, is it gonna be stubborn or is it coming off? Come on, there you go. Don't be a quitter. Ooh, there's rust behind that balancer, so they either stuck it on rusty or we're about to see some things. Aw. Wind this back so next time I go to grab it, there we go. All right. Oh, and people tell you there is nothing I hate more than freaking socket head screws on an engine. I just am not a fan. Huh. Let's see. Nope. Nope. Yup. Oh, that was not long enough. They silicone the bolts though. All right. Let's see. Oh. Let's make sure they didn't leave oil in it. I want to go with no, but it's always 50-50-50. Never trust that your boy took out the oil he thought he did. And who knows what size drain plug they would have ran on this thing. 11/16? No. 13/16? Nope. 3/4? Yep. Sounds empty. Uh-oh. Look at that. My jack's leaking. Huh. There might be something in here. Ooh, that is not good. That is a lot of junk. That's not good. It's a magnetic drain plug with a lot of stuff on it. Huh. That is not good. Well, let's see how much. Oh, listen to that. So I do like he has the oil pan rails there. Those are nice. Anytime I get the chance to reuse a set of those on a 5-liter Ford, those oil pan stiffener rails, I definitely use them. Let's go with all new hardware. It is an E7 block. Fingers are getting cold. That's a good case of clean out your bolt holes. Really? Don't snap, don't snap, don't snap. Somebody painted this pan. They were definitely trying to do some things. Oh, come on. Minute extra. Oh, this rail is all bent. Holy cow. Me and Pete are going to have a talk about some things. Nope, those aren't coming out with that. We might be able to get them out with 1/4 inch. Let's see, 7/16. This one's all bent too. So what I'm betting is someone pried off the timing cover to swap the cam, and instead of taking these rails down, they just grilleted it. And really? I'm betting they just grilled it. Okay. All right, guys, I'll bring you back in a minute here. I gotta turn on the heat. All right, guys, we're back. We got it probably 10, 20 degrees warmer in here. Oh yeah, nothing like standing in front of the heater. What is it? We're up to 55. So as you age, your hands, they don't tolerate the cold as well. So it looks like somebody put a couple main studs in here to do a windage tray. The problem with doing this is that you have to, a lot of the times you have to line hone the block. So that's definitely a thing. The other thing I see is it's got a standard oil pump drive shaft. I don't prefer those on any small block Ford. I prefer an ARP or similar drive shaft because I've had too many of them fail. And when they do, you lose your oil pressure. I guess that kind of goes without being said. Double roller chain, that looks pretty fresh. What I'm betting on this engine, sorry, the backup beeper got me, and what I'm betting on this engine is somebody did a top end swap. Why is this bolt so stuck? And they did a top end swap and never quite got around to finishing what they started. Between the rockers not being adjusted, between the pistons being kind of half-ass cleaned. I'm gonna bet that we're gonna see some bearing wear because the amount of stuff on here, but who says when that happened? I'm just seeing little spots of metal and gouges and stuff that doesn't make sense. It does have a high volume pump, and that is definitely a no-no on a stock shaft. I don't get into the whole high volume pump your pan dry bull crap. Melling even tells you that's a myth. They've literally never had it happen. If it does happen, it's because somebody put a high volume pump on a 200,000 mile sludge motor with no drain backs in it. It's just, it really isn't a thing. People hold on to that old ancient crap and they just want to make a big deal about it. I'm sure someone somewhere with a 200,000 mile Quaker Sludge 302 or 350 Chevy or something like that. Yeah, good thing we're checking because that's not tight. That's really not tight. Huh. That's really not tight. But these were. That's a factory Ford pickup in an aftermarket pan, so that's not the correct pickup either. You really want to match the pickup to the pan. They did not, so that's another thing. This one's tight. That one's kind of tight. No washers in there? There are washers, so that's something to watch out for. You know that thing you had in your hand 2 minutes ago and then you forgot where you had it? Story of my life. So this is an interesting setup. I don't know what to make of this. If anybody knows whose pan this was, or whose design this was, this windage tray, leave it in the comments. I'm not seeing a maker on it. It's an interesting setup though. I just don't remember having ever seen one like that. It definitely is. I'm gonna bet this pump is new too. Yeah, so this is just a stock shaft. We will not be reusing it. If he chooses to do so, it won't be with me building it. End of story on that. So it is just a stock bottom end 302. No big surprise there. That's what he thought it was. Let's see, can we take this timing cover off? Yeah, we should be able to take the timing cover off now. I'll say this though, they weren't afraid of silicone. Oh no, don't do that. You know what, we'll drain that on the big mat. Non-adjustable, it is an adjustable timing set. Huh. Check the clearance. Yeah, that thing's tight, so that never ran. Guys, don't do that. They put ARP lube on the crankshaft. Do not do that. That is that's a no. Let's see. Yeah, so you can definitely see there's some rust and debris. 2 MAE crank, so just standard stuff. I've never been unhappy that I bought this crank socket years and years ago, so it's great for stuff like this. See if they had the crank aligned right. Pete is not a bad mechanic, but you always check. Yeah, so they didn't degree it, they just put it dot to dot, which isn't a problem. It's one of those things that you'll find 90% of the people do. It does have the right dowel pin in it. The cam bolt wasn't Loctited though. Loctite your cam bolts on a small block Ford. For the love of baby Jesus, Loctite that cam bolt. And so the pins a lot of time will walk right out. I'm betting this is a comp setup. The other thing is these little guy bolts right here on your camshaft retaining plate, Loctite them. And these plates only go one way. You can put them on different ways, but if you look at the way the oiling groove is facing, there's no way to, in your head to go through and do this incorrectly. I mean, you can put them on wrong and then you'll have an oil pressure leak. This thing stinks. So a lot of the aftermarket ones will come with a thrust bearing. See how it says back bottom? This was a new plate. There's no wear on that. So he was doing everything probably the best of his abilities. And I think Pete had been younger when he did this. Or maybe he bought it like this. So, if you're a Ford guy, you know that getting the camshaft out is always an entertaining deal. I don't really want to tear up the cam. It is a billet core. I wonder whose cam this is. Probably a trick flow, if I had to bet. Come on. There we go. I'm not really concerned about the cam bearings at this point, but it doesn't hurt to be careful. Okay. Nope, it's a comp cam. 35-552-8, so it is a billet core. The -8 indicates a billet core. We'll have to look up the specs on it later. Huh. So chances are likely that this cam would have hit. It does look like they put new bearings in it. Well, let's do our favorite thing. There's a lot of assembly lube. Oh, typically Ford does factory label their connecting rods. Man, these things, there's the tiniest little rod bolts in these things. It's crazy that you really don't hear about them breaking all that often. We might just So I'm beginning to wonder if someone just gave this the old Craigslist rebuild, because the block is very clean. The pistons weren't really cleaned up nicely, but they were cleaned, and the bearings are honestly looking like they were replaced. So I'm gonna wonder what's the story on this guy? We'll find out soon. Oof. All right, so there are some. This is assembly lube too. This isn't oil. So this was reassembled. So somebody had it apart, maybe took a look at it. I'm gonna bet these are Ford bearings. Yeah, the crush is a little cheap. Yep, they are Ford from 5 of 89. So the bearings need done. It does look like the rods had been resized though. But yeah, that bearing's coming apart. Let's see some more. Yeah, same thing here. Let's check some mains out. Because I don't like the look of that. That whole main stud deal has got me kind of on edge. All right. Let's see what we got. Lots of assembly lube. They weren't shy about that. No skipping on the assembly lube. So what I like to do on these main caps is with studs is just give them a little tap up. Yeah, so same thing. They just cleaned this up and did, yeah, same Ford bearings. They just cleaned this up and did like a quickie. They didn't really rebuild it. Which, like I said, isn't necessarily a bad thing. That's why we're going through it. We want them to be able to put this thing together and not have to mess with it for years, hopefully. Hopefully. I mean, want to check out this thrust bearing. So there is somewhere, which you'd expect to see on a stick shift car, not bad. The bearing is definitely in need of replacement. Once again, it's not the end of the world. It's just a thing. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna start popping the pistons out. We're at that point now. You can see the bearings just absolutely don't have any crush, and that can be caused by a lot of things. One of them being, one of them being a bad tune-up, and being as this was an early supercharged engine, I wouldn't be surprised if the tune-up wasn't spot on. But other than that, it's a little bit stuck though. A little bit stuck. Like I said, these bearings are just, they're not staying. Let's tip it back a little bit. Let's see if we can't get you out. A little bit of carbon on that one. Pin feels good. Definitely press fit pin. Rings aren't broken. I don't think we're going to be reusing these. I think the goal here will be, and there it is. So your upper rod bearing, regardless of what some of these internet tuners say, your bearings will always show your tune-up. I've had this discussion before with some tuners where they get after the tune a little bit too hard and they start tearing up bearings. And the engine builder is always the one that gets the blame. Unfortunately, this isn't the case. So see how this wear is and see how it's in line with the beam? This thing was detonating, and when it does that, it squishes out the oil cushion. And when stuff like that happens, you know, the next thing up is it wants to curl the bearing shell in, and you end up with a spun bearing. It's just the way this works. That double explosion when you have two flame fronts colliding is hard. Your bearings need to be protected by that cushion of oil. That's what they ride on. So same thing. These bearings shouldn't be falling out. There should, you know, the shell should have some springiness to hold itself in, and these bearings just don't have that. This engine was whooped, and I would have expected that, being as what it's gone through, and being that it was a supercharged motor, and you don't even know. This can happen NA, but this was definitely, in my opinion, yeah, so we're gonna see more of the same. So that's the fuzz we were seeing on the magnet. Oil pan magnets, I'm a really big fan of, because the more trash you contain, the less that's going through there. So we're gonna have to measure this crank and make sure that it's good to use. This thing has definitely been apart before, and somebody knew it because there's scratches going sideways. So those don't typically happen. And it looks like the crank was polished. So, no, it wasn't polished. It's just pretty clean. Man, this socket must be worn out, or this. I think the crank will be okay with a slight polish so far. I mean, obviously we don't know till we get them all apart, but so far. It's funny, Ford used the same rods for like everything. So these are 71 stamped rods and a block that came out of the SN95. Ford did not waste a dime. If they could have chose not to, they didn't. Yeah, same thing over and over again. So as long as we don't have any spun rods, we can either have the crank turned or polished. And it will be usable. There's no real grooves in it. We got to measure it up to see though, because what your eye sees is not always what the micrometer sees. The old ichrometer is not as good. Yeah, these bearings are just there's nothing left as far as crush on them. They're just not springing back. And I dropped that one. Good thing we're not gonna probably reuse them. That was not in my playbook. Man. Definitely some sticky rings in these things. Yeah, look, a little bit of copper showing there. This thing was at its end of life. Like I said, all the assembly lube. What's interesting though is that they would have had this apart to re-lube these bearings and deem them okay to use. That's pretty interesting to me. And honestly, I should be putting rubber hose or something around this as I'm disassembling it. but I didn't. So all these rings are and there's, when I said I thought it had rust behind the rings, there it is. So this thing got some moisture in it. It might have freed up if you ran it, but it also might have been a blow-by smoking monster. So no big surprise there. Engines that sit, yeah, look at that. The bearings are just falling out everywhere. Engines that sit generally, especially around here, it might be different in an area that doesn't have so much weather change, but PA and Ohio, man, you know, it could be 80 degrees in the afternoon and $20 degrees in the morning. Yeah, same thing. All the upper rod bearings are hammered. So it's a good thing to tear it apart, refresh it. We may do upgraded rod bolts on these and have the rods resized. And then you should be good. I do know what this garage needs though. Oh my God, it needs a bathroom. So the cold, too much soda. And my bladder. Oh, the crank spin's free. See that? That crank spin's free. So I doubt we're gonna see any main damage. Yeah. That crank just wants to keep on turning. This piston is sliding its way right out. Oh, okay. Well, the good part is we have no broken rings. The bad part is we have no tension in the rings we have. They're soft. That's another thing that happens when the tune-up is not right. You can measure the free gap of the rings before and after, and you can also kind of tell, like the factory rings were kind of a higher tension ring, so they generally have some pressure behind them. These ones, there's no pressure left. You could collapse them by finger. So far, no spun bearings though, so that's good news. Finding crank grinders anymore. See, we got a little bit of rust right there too. Finding crank grinders anymore is a hard thing. There's not a lot of guys still doing it. They said it's just, everyone I talk to says it's just not worth the time. the time required to versus the dollar gained isn't real good. All right, so we're getting there now. Next step up is let's get these main camps off and let's pull this crankshaft. Yeah, same thing. So I'm not surprised to see any of what I'm seeing. I thought it might have been rebuilt in the beginning, but now I don't. Usually these come right off. Somebody glued it down. Well, at least it's not spun. One piece rear main. That main is toasted. Toasted, roasted. Remember, if you don't make the noise, were you even lifting it? So we're definitely having this. This is a cast crank. We're definitely gonna have it polished. The mains don't look bad though. All right, all the cam bearings are in place because this ain't no LS. If it was an LS, we'd have found a cam bearing hanging out somewhere that wasn't supposed to be. Cue the comments section now. You ever want to start a comment war, mention Chevy or Ford or Dodge, and you'll have every hater in the world telling you about their daddy's uncles, how they never had that, never seen that. And meanwhile, guys, I built them all. They're just all air pumps. Every engine has its pluses, every engine has its minuses. I just happen to prefer a small block Ford to most engines. So guys, that's about it really. So when you're turning them down, you want to look, watch, and see what you see. You want to go through everything you can. Will you see everything that's out there? No. That's why it's always good to have a good machinist to back you up. In my opinion, anyway. Sorry, man, I'm like a squirrel today. I'm on vacation this week. It's Thanksgiving week. I got turkey on the brain. Thanksgiving is one of my more favorite times. of the year. So getting a little rambly today, sentimental. I'm gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. But yeah, so like I said, having a good machinist in your back pocket is always helpful. It's one that won't sit on your block for 200 years. And there's the work phone. Sorry, boys, this guy is off this week. Pittsburgh, PA, nope. Not this week. You are on your own. I'll probably answer it. I always try to take good care of my customers, especially the ones that are better customers. And being a field tech has kind of its ups and downs, so you want to do stuff like that. Anyway, the ramble's over. Man, I'm definitely rambling today. So basically, where we're at with this thing, other than having it hot tanked and cleaned, the deck surfaces look okay. It looks like it was decked. That's the crazy part about this. So there's some missing story to me about this whole engine, because it looks to have been decked. The decks are clean. Well, somebody knew enough that they put a sealer on here and a glue so you can glue them down. We're definitely gonna have it hot tanked. These bearings are definitely new cam bearings. I don't know if you guys can see that, but there's newer cam bearings put in. So there's some stories behind this that we haven't seen yet, but none of that affects what we got to do. So we're gonna take this off here. We're not dealing with that. Huh. This filter is dry as a never ran. So never ran with that frame, all the haters. Yeah, so we'll have a mild cleanup done on it, and then when I get it back, we'll bring it back, let you guys see. This is the base of a cheap kind of, we'll do a forged piston maybe. They do have pullers for these. We'll kind of do a cheapy rebuild on it, and we'll have him. That's interesting. Why is that dowel pin longer? So there is some stuff going on that needs to be, yeah. So factory 4 dowel pins are short. You gotta watch, because if this dowel pin is too long and it goes up into that bore, it can actually hold the head off. Huh. Yeah, see some of the bores there where that rust was sitting. That bore is pretty bad. So we'll definitely, in this bore too, so we're definitely gonna have to go 30, which I feel better about. A fresh bore, fresh life, good ring seal, you know. All that good stuff. Start the fresh, have them start it and not let it sit for 25 years. This engine may very well have ran fine the way it was. It's 50-50 on if those rings would have came back. 50-50-50 maybe. So, all right guys, thanks for watching. We're starting to build some momentum on getting some subscribers in. Guys, please keep it up. Like, share, subscribe. If you like the content we're making, you know, just that subscribe button even helps out a lot. I mean, I appreciate every viewer. I gotta try to respond to everybody's questions. If some, you know, I try to go through all that stuff. Like I said, if there's anything you guys, you know, run into, you want to ask me something, ask me. If I know, I'll help you. If not, I won't BS you. All right, guys, thanks.